Hello and welcome to another episode of Drams Delivered. This month we are going to one of our favourite regions of the Scotch whisky world, and we are going to the west coast of Scotland to a little island called Islay. Now it is spelled I-S-L-A-Y, so it looks like Islay, but is pronounced Islay. Now we are going to try something called Port Charlotte from Bruichladdich distillery, which has quite an interesting history, as does Islay itself. But what do you want to tell us about this, John?
Yes, so there's actually a number of lost distilleries on Islay, and Port Charlotte is one of them. There used to be a distillery called Port Charlotte years and years ago. The distillery had quite a long and checkered history, and at one point it changed its name to Loch-and-Dal Distillery, and then it shut down. And this is kind of Bruichladdich way of commemorating Port Charlotte Distillery by producing this distinct style of whisky. So you may have seen the sort of blue bottle, the Bruichladdich baby blue, aqua blue bottle. That's completely unpeated from Bruichladdich Distillery. Port Charlotte is heavily peated. And then you also have Octomore from Bruichladdich Distillery, which is super heavily peated. So three very distinct styles from one distillery.
Should we try some?
Well, I think it's you to
so.
Open.
Now,
Looks tricky.
It does look tricky. There's almost like two bits you could open it at, and the one that looks like I should do it doesn't do the whole thing, but.
Not bad. Not bad.
I'll live with that.
Here we
Ready?
go.
Oh.
What a pop.
Wah, wah, wee, wah, wah. Right, for you.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, please.
Can
Yeah.
you give me some. Oh,
No,
God, sorry, that's a
jeez.
hester.
Now, I heard a great term recently to describe a large or very strong dram. That's a real frightener you've given me there. Look at the size of that.
That is a frightener.
So tell us a little bit about this whiskey.
Yeah, so we are entering the world of peated whiskey, and in fact this is what we'd regard as heavily peated whiskey. So what is peated whiskey? Basically, in the whiskey making process we need water, yeast and barley, and in the process the barley is soaked, and during that process you need to dry the barley so that it doesn't actually sprout. And the way you dry the barley makes a big difference into the flavour of your whiskey. So in this case, what they do is they will cut peat out of the ground, and peat is effectively condensed earth over maybe 2,000-3,000 years. And there's lots of it on Islay. So they cut it out of the ground, they let it dry, and then they put it in the kiln and they burn it. And that smoke coming up from underneath the barley floor will start to dry the barley. The way to think about it is if you've been maybe at like a bonfire or a barbecue and you smell your jacket the next day, it's kind of absorbed all that kind of smoke. The barley is doing the same thing. And if you make whiskey using that barley, you will get a style of whiskey similar to this. Now, this is heavily peated. So in the peated scale, we use a scale called parts per million. I believe this is about 40.
About 40 parts per million, or ppm, as it's often shortened to.
Which is pretty up there. The only kind of distilleries that are releases that are more than that is the kind of big brother of this, which is Octomore, and it's like about 130 to 150 ppm, but a lot of that actually gets lost in the distillation process. So that measurement is of the barley. So Octomore, yes, it is more, but actually in terms of in glass, this is probably not too far off it, I'd say.
So yes, what we're trying here today is cask strength Port Charlotte. So this is 55.1%. So it really is quite punchy. And this is part of a yearly release that Port Charlotte do. And each year is a different cask type. So this is OLC, which stands for Oloroso cask. Oloroso being a type of sherry. So from that you would expect really sweet notes, really rich sort of notes of raisins, sultanas, brown sugar, that kind of thing. And obviously from the peat, as Matt was saying, you'd expect a lot of earthy, smoky notes as well.
This is definitely whiskey that will divide you guys. I think some of you will love it, some of you will hate it. But that is what whiskey's about. And to be honest, a lot of the time I thought I didn't like peated whiskey and steered away from it, and I'd never buy a bottle of it. So hopefully we will kind of convert some of you to love peat, because I didn't like peat to begin with. Do you?
I don't know if anyone does like peat when they start out on their whiskey journey. I used to think it was absolutely disgusting, and I didn't know how anyone could drink it. And then the real game changer for me was a different peated whiskey called Ardbeg Ugadil, which really just opened my eyes to how good it can be. And it's actually quite similar, Ugadil, to this whiskey in front of us right here. Similar in strength and in how it's matured. It's a sherry cask whiskey as well. So yeah, let's have a little taste.
Yeah, I can smell it from here. It's, these drams definitely fill the room. As soon as you open your little bottle, you will kind of know what I mean. It just smells great.
It's a lot of flavour in the glass there. Now, I would say that definitely needs a little bit of water, just to help lower that initial kind of burn of the alcohol and to let the flavours open up. Oof.
Yeah, water is definitely going to help this, I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, we were actually lucky enough to stay in the village of Port Charlotte when we went over to Islay at the Lochendal Hotel. And one of the memories that I'll always remember of Islay is we checked in. We were quite excited. It's my first time on Islay. It was Matt's second time, I think. So we literally checked in, took a bottle of Port Charlotte down to the beach and sat there and had a couple of drams. It was a beautiful summer's day. I think it was the beginning of June. And it'll always stick with me. And it always takes me back there if I have a wee dram of Port Charlotte.
That's it. I think having whiskey in certain places is a really nice thing to do. And if you guys take your little bottles and you're on a walk up a hill after doing, we've got a friend who does a lot of kind of hill walking in Monroe's, and he always takes a photo of a wee whiskey at the top. And we'd love to know how you drink yours. If it's, Sunday night in front of the fire, if it's with your friends, with your colleagues, or if you like to go to a certain place to have your whiskey, please put a photo up online, tag us in it, because we'd love to see it and we'd love to reshare it, because the more we know about what you guys are doing with the whiskey, it kind of fills us with joy as well. So we'd love to see where you're drinking your Port Charlotte.
Well, on that note, I think we'll say Slán Siva and thanks for joining us. Hope
See
you enjoy.
Cheers.